Hi, I was planning to do some sort of proper review of Hitman 3, but it really didn't feel like my style, so this is what you're gonna get. At this point I've played Hitman 3 for about 50 hours, completed almost all of the challenges, and for the most part I have had a good time. The game is great, but we've known that for 5 years already, so I'm going to focus on the things that are not so great, and that will probably make it seem like I hate the game. I don't. I just want it to be as good as it could be, and the only thing I can do about it is to scream into the void and hope somebody hears. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, because I've already talked about many of these things extensively in the past, and I don't want this video to be like an hour long. Maybe I'll elaborate someday, but right now I think this will be just fine. Also, there will be spoilers. Let's commence the bitching. Number 1. It is still an always online single player game. Hitman Codename 47 came out over 20 years ago, and I can still play it today if I want to. If Hitman 3 continues to rely on its servers, exactly nobody will be playing it in 20 years. IO hasn't said even a word about their plans for long-term support, and as long as that continues to be the case, I cannot recommend this game. Number 2. The unlock system based on the linear mastery tracks may have worked with Hitman 2016's episodic release, but now that there are maps from 3 games that are all available at once, the system feels hopelessly inadequate. This game could have really used an in-game currency and store system or item customization, but here we are. Still stuck with the mastery system that was clearly designed for a completely different type of release. Number 3. The challenges that drive the mastery system are still very unimaginative and mostly just work as a checklist of things that can be done. The best challenge in the game was T-47 in Berlin, which required a Terminator-inspired weapon disguise and escape, but even for that I had to arbitrarily add an extra restriction or 2 for myself just to make it interesting. Number 4. The challenges also don't unlock anything. Discover challenges in particular could have been an ideal way to unlock new starting locations or smuggle points. In Hitman 2016 there were a couple of starting locations that were tied to challenges, but after that there's been nothing. Huge wasted opportunity if you ask me. Number 5. The rating system is just as bad as before. Just because there are now some random words slapped on top of it doesn't change the fact that the underlying core system is the same old mess as always. The fact that it tracks something as redundant as noticed kills should really say it all. They also repeated a mistake from Blood Money, so while it is possible to get some more unique ratings like Physics Teacher, you're not allowed to play well to get them because the Silent Assassin rating overrides the other one. Number 6. The only actually new thing about this game is the VR support, which is only available on the PlayStation 4. I like both Hitman and VR, so it really feels like a slap in the face to restrict VR to a VR system that is clearly technologically outdated, and I'm guessing most of the VR community feel the same way. Maybe it will one day support proper PC VR, but since IO hasn't said a word about it and the last PlayStation exclusive content, that being the Sarajevo 6, never left PlayStation, I am not too optimistic. Number 7. A camera is now part of the default loadout, and it adds absolutely nothing of value, and in fact makes the jonking map needlessly cumbersome to navigate. You're supposed to use the camera to hack doors open, but since you're also required to have a dongle that opens the door, the whole hacking thing doesn't really make sense in the first place. These doors could have worked the same way as the ones in Hokkaido do, and the map would have been better as a result. Number 8. Sniping with a mouse is still completely busted. When zooming in, the sensitivity drops disproportionately low, making sniping borderline painful. I have no idea how this continues to be an issue, since zooming with the aforementioned camera works just fine. Number 9. There is still no option to mute the handlers. Hearing the same lines repeated on every playthrough got old years ago, but what crossed a new line for me was when I was solving the murder mystery in Dartmoor and Diana felt the need to jump in and spoil who the killer was before I had even taken a proper look at the evidence.
This is
Broken
the
lab
cable showing
equipment.
lethal dosages.
It looks like
for
it
the
was
poison
recently
used
used,
to
though.
kill Zachary.
Something is circled 47. Female, age 65 to 79, 60 to 64 kilograms.
Number 10. The bloom and auto exposure are completely out of control, especially in the older maps. The cave in Sapienza is the ugliest example I run into, as the darker areas are excessively dark, while the cave exit and the lab look like nuclear explosions. A good example of a new map having issues is Mendoza at the Shrine starting location. It's not as bad as the Sapienza example, but it does not look pretty. And of course, there's no setting to disable any of this. Looking at some 2016 comparison shots really makes me wonder if IO got so excited about all the lighting effects they could add that they didn't stop to consider whether they should. Number 11. In Mendoza, there's a drink that can be poisoned. If you stay close to the drink, the target will drink it. But if you leave the area, the target's wife will drink it. Minor thing, but it's the nastiest example of NPCs changing their routines depending on your proximity that I've seen. Number 12. You can no longer change which shoulder the camera follows unless you are aiming with a gun. According to an IO dev, this might be an intentional change because people did it accidentally and important things weren't getting framed properly. I very much hope this is a bug because that reasoning doesn't sound very convincing. Number 13. This is getting speculative, but I feel like I need to mention elusive targets. IO has said that they are making some changes to them, but still haven't told us any specifics. I can only hope that it is something major because if ETs continue to exploit people's fear of missing out by being time-gated, that would be another really big red flag. As I was editing this video, they actually did post the first monthly roadmap, which does put a time frame for the first elusive target, which is a recycled one. Either way, it's not a promising sign. Number 14. This is very nitpicky even by my standards, but it does bug me how depending on the map, pipes are either fine to climb or count as hostile areas. It's been annoying me since 2016 how pipes in Paris make the level a joy to navigate, while similar pipes in Bangkok are completely useless as they count as hostile areas. Most pipes are also kinda strangely placed, for example going from the second to the third floor rather than all the way along the building. And number 15! 5 days before release, in a long blog post, IO quietly mentioned that PC players wouldn't be able to import their Hitman 1 and 2 maps to Hitman 3 and would have to buy the games again despite all their earlier promises. Backlash ensued, and IO promised to fix this in the coming weeks, whatever that turns out to mean. The only person to use the word sorry at any point was Epic's Tim Sweeney. Alright, enough bitching for now. I also want to highlight some of the good things about Hitman 3. Number 1. The Berlin mission's gimmick of letting you choose which targets to kill is exactly the kind of thing I had been asking for, and it is executed very well. The nightclub also has a nice shithole aesthetic that the trilogy has been missing, and I do mean that 100% as a compliment. Berlin is easily my favorite mission in the game, and one of the best ones in the trilogy. Number 2. The maps in general feel more focused than the ones in Hitman 2. The targets aren't scattered as far from one another like they were in something like Mumbai, which makes the maps feel more appealing to replay. Chongqing might turn out to be an exception, but it's also too early to say for sure. Number 3. The streets in Chongqing are some of the best looking areas in the trilogy. Like said, the targets being far apart might damage the mission, but the visuals definitely do their part in carrying the map. Also, a special shout out to this bit of dialogue here. I'm sure the well where the food is to die for puns come from will never run dry, but this little bit here felt far more fresh and oddly fitting.
Sometimes it feels like she's changed.
People change.
It's stupid, but I'm kind of scared she's outgrowing me. Like maybe she's changing, but I'm just staying the same. I'm just, I don't know, dead weight.
She agreed to meet you in the middle of the night, in the rain. No one does that if they don't care.
I guess that's true.
Number 4. I lost interest in the main story a long time ago and thought it got in the way too often in Hitman 2. In Hitman 3, I still did not give a crap about the main storyline, but instead of getting in the way, it was used to set up interesting missions. I won't pretend to know or care why exactly 47 is going against the ICA, but it does make for interesting scenarios in missions like Berlin and Chongqing. And those scenarios can stand on their own without relying on the main story, as I think Hitman missions should. Number 5. There's now a tab for bonus missions in the campaigns menu, so people have a chance of finding those missions. I still think the menus are a relic from a time when Paris was the only mission, but hey, an improvement is an improvement. Number 6. The persistent shortcut system worked better than I expected. It is a very minor thing, but during the first few playthroughs, looking for those shortcuts to unlock and seeing what areas they connect to did make the missions easy to digest and learn the ins and outs of them. Number 7. It seems like the NPCs are less likely to comment on your bad breath when you're standing close to them. Yeah, I know this sounds like a dumb thing to notice and bring up, but it really was a problem in Hitman 2.
You need a mint, twat.
And number 8. Hitman 2 with Hitman 1's locations installed was close to 150 gigs. Hitman 3 with the previous 2 games included is less than half of that. No matter how you look at that, it's just nuts that they managed to push the file size down by that much. And finally, I have a couple of things that I don't yet know if I like or not. So, first off, there's the final mission that takes place on a train. I very much appreciate that they're doing something different and would love to see more missions with unique premises, but at the same time I really don't see myself replaying this one as it is very linear. And the second thing I don't know about is that there are now keypads which you manually enter the code into. On one hand, it was interesting to look for key codes on whiteboards and such on the first playthrough, but after learning the code, it almost feels like cheating being able to just use it on later playthroughs without having to do anything to learn it. It'd probably get really tedious having to get the code every time, but it still seems like a strange system. And that's it. Those are my first impressions on Hitman 3. It's great, but I don't recommend it, and it's disappointing, but I still enjoyed it. So, like and follow and do whatever it is you do on YouTube. I'll probably do another one of these sometime later if my opinions change. Thanks for watching.